because that's kind of in the back of every man's head, is that what happens when I piss her off?
Is she going to use it against me?
Is she going to call me broke?
This is where women need to do better, because if we are going to say like boss babe and run with that culture, which I'm not in full support of the boss babe culture, believe it or not. I was forced into hyper independence. This was not by choice.
All right, welcome back to another episode of The Real Deal Podcast with my co-host,
Mr. Cleon Deal. Happy to be here, man.
The
Good to see you.
greatest, the real deal, the reason why
Just a guy, man.
we got the name. And myself, Brandon Haley. And today we are doing our very first remote podcast with our good friend, Miss Hillary, a finance expert. We appreciate you coming to hang out with us.
Yes, thank you so much.
A quick backstory on how we actually met was at a fashion show that MVS put together, who went to USF, is from the Tampa Bay area in St. Pete. So he had put one on, and Hillary was there kind of like running the show with Sydney. And Sydney had reached out to me, and I came out and just hung out.
So you weren't working?
No. Well, okay. Like always working, always networking. And Hillary was there, and she was just in go, 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 go mode. And I'm just like, it's kind of scary. Kind of scary, but like, I kind of like it. Like, she's telling people where to go. Hey, you need to go get some food. Hey, take him. He's hungry. Go get him a Diet Coke or a Coke Zero. I'm like, I like this girl. She's cool. So we ended up connecting on Instagram right before I left. And then I've just been following her ever since. But she's a very great individual from the brief time that I had meeting her, and then just following her on social media since then, because that was almost a year ago. The next one's actually coming up next month in April.
Yep.
In downtown Tampa. Are you going to be at that one?
Oh yeah, I'm running it. I'm running it.
Hey, of course she is. Of course. So
now, you guys, I'm like the lowest on the totem pole for this though, because it's Sid and Whit, and they are co-directing everything, and I just handle the money.
Exactly.
I just handle the money.
That makes sense. But if you guys saw what I saw, you will understand too. She's about her business.
Yes. Gotta be.
Give us a little and I didn't even know she was what her career was at the time, but give us a little background of what you do and a story that got you into what you do.
Yeah, so funny enough, I don't actually work in fashion at all. I was helping MVS because he's one of my players. So the way that all came together, 2, 3, 4 degrees of separation in life. I actually am the financial coach for 12 NFL teams. So I work with 12 organizations across the NFL, and I provide all of the financial literacy education for rookie, second, third, and fourth year guys. And so I'm in the buildings a lot. I'm working with a lot of players, hence my connection to MVS, my guy. Mm-hmm. I started doing it a long time ago, over 10 years ago. And the thing that got me into it was college. I had some really good friends at Oregon State University, where I grew up in Oregon. Don't live there anymore. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, I was born.
Yeah, I moved out of Oregon a while ago.
Yeah, I got family up there. I did not know that. I was born in Oregon though.
Yeah, see, like I was born and raised in Gresham, Oregon, a little farm town, and went to Oregon State. And there was a bunch of guys on the football team that got drafted to the NFL the year I graduated. We actually had the largest draft class Oregon State's ever seen, and a few of those guys were like super good friends of mine. So
wow,
I was helping them out, and they were asking questions, and there was some shit going on in my life with my mom being sick, and like life was very real for me, and I had no money and they had a ton of money, and I was figuring out how to make a penny become a quarter, and they were figuring out how to spend $10,000 at a time. And I was like, we have very different lives. But I was helping them, and I was like, hey, save it, because it's never going to come this fast at you again. And we started really vibing over the fact that I could help them, and that they were utilizing that the things I was giving them in a really good way. And so I ended up, I don't know, a few years later, telling one of my buddies that I was designing programs. I was working with the prison system in Oregon, and I was helping people getting out of prison with their money. So like I've worked in all aspects of personal finance, from banking to the prison system to volunteering, all sorts of things, all the way up to pro athletics and executives. And I told my buddy I was going to build a program, and he's like, well, let me introduce you to somebody. Made a couple introductions. Another friend of mine who worked in real estate in Oregon happened to be really good friends with a guy named Spencer Pasinger, who went to University of Oregon, and made an intro to Spencer and was like, yo, you got to like talk to this girl. So all of this all came together, and Spencer made the call to Caleb Thornhill, the director of player engagement for the Miami Dolphins. And within a month, I was on a plane to Fort Lauderdale, paid for myself to get there. I did not get paid to go. It was an interview. And I spent 5 days with some retired guys, and I showed Caleb what I could do. And he turned around 24 hours after I got home and said, I'm hiring you for the Miami Dolphins. I was like, oh, great. Because I wasn't actually working for the Miami Dolphins when I went down there. I was working for a retired athlete thing. So the long and short, my career has been wild, and a lot of it has been self-funded. I bootstrapped my company from the ground up with my own money, and turned it into something that's, worth something now.
Yeah, and the company name is Financial Footwork, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So
Financial Footwork.
how does somebody get to work with you that isn't in the NFL?
Yeah, I have programs on my website. Most of my coaching guides are self-paced because everybody has a different lifestyle, a different pace of life. And so I have some coaching guides online. You can go pick one up. It'll walk you through 6 months of how to manage your finances appropriately. And we'll come out with some more courses over the course of the next few years. I do have a whole YouTube channel. There's a bunch of free resources on that.
What's that called?
I tried it.
Financial Footwork?
Oh, it's all Financial Footwork. Yeah. Everything's branded Financial Footwork. I like to give people as much as I can that's not expensive, because personal finance, if you're struggling, it's really hard to find money to put towards learning. Right. So I try to make everything reasonably priced. So if you're not a pro athlete, it doesn't mean you can't work with me.
That's good. I didn't know that. Well, how did you come to building this program? Because basically you just had all your friends that ended up turning into professional athletes, and you're like, oh, well, I know how money works. Why did you think you knew how money works? And what made you want to like be an entrepreneur, especially as a female? Well, you have to, like, if you're trying to manage.
No, you're totally right. Like, how do you think you know how to teach these guys about money?
What makes you think that?
Yeah, you have to have a little bit of confidence, because you got to think, you're at the time, if this is in college, you're like 22, 23, max 24 years old. And if I go back and I think I didn't even know how to manage my own money at 23, 24, let alone say, hey, I'm going to tell these guys that just got paid $1 million a year, whatever, depending on where they were drafted, I'm going to tell them what to do with their money.
I grew up in a household that talked about money all the time. So money was a constant for me. And when I was 19, my life kind of got shaken up a little bit. I had a very easy life until my mom got sick at 19. Like, my college was paid for. Your girl was taking 10 credits a quarter, playing video games all the time, like living her best life as a freshman. I almost didn't pass a class because I would like forget to go to class because I was 18 and free of my household. So I was playing video games and just being stupid. My mom got sick, and that switched everything up. I went from having everything I needed, not having to manage anything, to not having enough money to pay rent. And so I had to very quickly take all the skills I'd been taught as a kid and apply them in real time. And as I was doing that and learning as I went, I was helping my friends manage their scholarship checks because they had huge amounts and I had nothing. I was like, you can pay for everything, go kick rocks. I can hardly afford my food. And so I was forced into a position at 19 to figure it out. And my brother is 17. He was coming into college a year later. So I knew that I didn't want my baby brother to have to suffer through shit in college. So as big sis, like, I had a full-time job by the time I was 19 while taking 20 credits. I completely switched the game and realized what I had to do to get that degree. And I knew that managing money was a piece of that. So I learned everything. I literally downloaded every financial piece of information I could into my brain, and I just kind of figured it out. And then I went into banking, and I actually worked and moved my way up into a bank. Started as a banker. I was doing everything inside the branch. So I could basically tell you how the banking system works top to bottom. Honestly, I encourage anybody in the entire United States to spend a year working in a bank in their teens. Go be a teller, go be a banker, learn how the banking system works, because it will change how you move with money. And I did that. And then I worked in mortgage, and I was in real estate, was a top 1% mortgage lender on the West Coast for like 12 years while I was building this company. So I was always actively participating in finance while I was teaching it. And then I was building the programs as I went. And I will tell you, when I first started, looking back, oh my God, they were horrible. Now, as I'm an educator 10 years later, I'm like, oh, my programs have come a very long way. They've evolved. They weren't horrible, but when you look back, you're like, oh God, the first thing you ever do is just terrible.
Yeah,
so
it always is. Just like
our first episode.
Look at our first. I'll send you a clip from the first episode compared to like how the setup looks now. You know, a lot has changed. There's two things that I was thinking about as you're talking there. One is, since I probably won't ever work in a bank, I do want a rundown of like the Cliff Notes version of how that actually operates, because I'm interested. And two, you mentioned that when you were younger, money was talked about a lot.
Yeah.
And I think how we're raised obviously makes us who we are today. You know, Cleon loves to say this, and
Brandon loves to say that.
I
steal
it because I love it. He says you either accept or reject the things that you see as you're growing up. And I'm like, I love that because it's so true. Yep. And for me, it was like we had money and then lost it all in like the 2007, 2008 market crash. So then it was like going from don't even know what money is because it's irrelevant to Tyson breaded chicken patties in the freezer every night for lunch, breakfast, or lunch and dinner. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like, okay, now I started thinking a little bit. So it's like, okay, well, maybe this thing called money is like a harder resource to get. So then that kind of framed my brain younger. And it took a lot more work as I got older, like into my 20s, like, hey, you shouldn't really think like that about money because it really is abundant. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like, how important was that for you to talk about money as a kid? And if somebody that maybe be in my situation that, you know, grew up with the scarcity mindset being preached to them, how can they overcome that faster than I did?
Yeah. So my book comes out sometime in the next 3 to 4 months, and I actually talk about this. It's called Train Your Money.
Train Your Money?
Train Your Money. And I'll be publishing it. Yeah, I'm excited.
I'll be buying it.
I mean, I'll send you a copy. I'll send both of you a copy.
You need a sign.
Oh, for sure. But I talk a lot about scarcity mentality, and I talk a lot about how your environment and the influencers within your environment change how you think about money. With the new generation coming up, unfortunately, it's not as many environmental triggers as maybe I had, because I'm 37 years old. So when I grew up, like my parents were still writing checks at the grocery stores. Debit cards didn't even exist. So the way I learned about money is a little different than Apple Pay, Zelle, and all the social media sites. But the influencers you have around your money can actually change what you think about money. And so for people with scarcity mentality, unfortunately, it is going to be a uphill battle in the sense, and it's completely possible to overcome it. But in order to get out of scarcity mentality, you have to remove yourself from the environment that's causing it. And that's very, very hard to do, because you're talking about removing yourself from where your family lives, how you grew up, what you do for work, your education level, where you got education. Because let's face it, we don't get to determine as kids where we go to school. It's where do our parents live and what school district does that put us in, right? And so all of those factors, environmental, emotional, those triggers that we have around money are formulated in our younger years. And it isn't until we actually are put or thrust into situations where we have to think about it, actively think about what money's doing, we don't reframe our mindset. So I always tell people, if you're actually taking an interest in money, go back to your 2-year-old self, your 5-year-old self, and your 10-year-old self. Place yourself where you first thought about money, where you first saw it being used, and then also tell yourself where you've learned your first money lesson. So those 3 things are very crucial. Where you first learned about money or saw it is going to probably be your parents or a brother or sister or family spending it. Where you first had an emotional tie to it is going to be something totally different. And I bet you the education side of it, you didn't learn until after the other 2 things happened. So we learn about money in reverse. And now it's our job, as you know, I'm an older millennial. It's my job to help change that narrative and get people to think about the education first, so that we don't get into the traps of scarcity mentality, people thinking that they can't or they're unable to, when in reality, that's more of a mindset. Money is 99% mindset, 1% math, period. So if you figure out the mindset, which takes time and it's hard, you can figure out the math. And that's what I have to say to people that are in that scarcity mindset, is you have to somehow find a way to remove yourself from the environment. You may not be able to physically do it, but that doesn't mean that you can't go learn something from someone in a different environment. Find a mentor, right? Those types of things. So you can remove yourself without physically leaving your desk chair.
Yeah, that's super. That's super good. That's gonna stay with me. Removing yourself from that environment to change your mindset, because I think that can apply to a lot of areas in your life.
Everything.
So as the like when they talk about like if you're the smartest person or the richest person in the room, you need to go and change the
Yeah,
room.
you're in the wrong room.
You're in the
You're in the
wrong
wrong
room.
room.
You need to constantly be changing to make sure that you're consistently elevating. That's good. I like that. I like
It's
that
the
a lot.
same concept for anything you do, any professional skill you are building. It's the same concept. Be the not maybe the dumbest person at the table because you want to be able to interject and ask questions, but definitely don't be the smartest person in the room because you'll never learn anything.
Yeah, and always ask questions. One of the books that helped me, I struggled with it for a long time, and just like this, had this undeserving feeling of like, oh, maybe I don't deserve what I think I
Mhm.
want. And I listened to, well, actually, Joanna, who we had on last episode, who was my fitness coach, and I, had this conversation about money with her at the time, years and years ago. She recommended the book "How to Be a Badass at Making Money" by Jen
Yeah,
Sincere, and just listening to that book, she started to help shift the perspective of it. And then even when I started like making money, once I got into like the 6-figure range, then I still like had that, oh, maybe I don't deserve this. Maybe I don't deserve this.
that's
Um,
scarcity, and you still have the scarcity mentality in the back of your mind.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it just took forever to get rid of. Now it's just like, I don't care. It's like, if it happens, it happens. If I lose it, I get it again.
Mm.
But it took probably until I was 29, so
Hmm.
like 2 years ago, to like,
Abundance, man. Now you're
yeah, to like
working with
really,
abundance versus scarcity.
yeah. And once I started doing that, it's just like more opportunities to take risks start to arise. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, God in the universe start to put things into your life that help you financially. So
Facts.
that was my biggest whatever experience with. I'm trying to
Take
think of the
away.
word. Yeah, biggest
Take away,
experience
baby.
with like
We got you.
having that lack mindset when it comes to money, because it's super important. And I remember talking, we did a episode, but we did one talking about money
Yeah.
before, like based on our own experiences. And when I first graduated, I went straight into life insurance, and that was like a roller coaster.
Oh,
But
insurance
Yeah.
sales. Woo.
yeah. But
No
I
thanks.
grew up playing sports, and sports
Yeah.
to teach you like, if it's hard, if not everybody's doing it,
Yeah.
you want to do it. And so that's the mentality that I had, and I stayed there for like 4.5 years. But that's where I met Cleon. So everything happens for its reason, and now he's the greatest co-host of all time. but
No.
that's where I like was just stuck with it for too long, and then I finally burned out, and then I like had I tell everybody like COVID was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Oh
Reason
yeah.
being is that's the year where I was like burning out of insurance, and then like had no money. I made like
Mm.
$20,000 for the entire year. And like, if there was no holds on all those things, like you didn't have to pay your car note, you didn't have to pay a lot of things because of
Yeah.
coronavirus. So I'm like, thank you, Jesus. And then that ended up leading to like, that's when I like kind of transitioned into the nightlife. And
Yeah.
then obviously that's where I met like some of the athletes and stuff. That's how Sydney had found me, which
Yep.
ended up connecting us. So like, everything kind of happens as it's supposed to, which also led me to get promoted a lot faster, which led me to actually experience getting actual money.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes you have to
everything
take
kind
a
of works
step
out.
back to go forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's kind of what it was.
Had to take a few steps back. Huh?
What do you say to somebody that? Because this is my thought process. Like, when you're taking that step back, like that year I had was completely
Yeah.
burned out. Didn't know what I was doing, and I just felt so demotivated.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any money. And when they say like, if you don't have any money, you should be so motivated to go get money. But
Not
I
always.
wasn't.
No.
And I wasn't. So what do you say to somebody that's like maybe going through that right now?
Find one thing you can focus on and learn 5 minutes a day about that one topic. That way you're not pressuring yourself to learn too much or overloading yourself. We get so hyped up about something new, and then we throw everything we've got into it for 2 or 3 days, and then we stop doing the work.
Yeah.
And so if you can build habits where and I did this. I did this with my company. I was in mortgage. I was working 60 hours a week. I was 100% commission, and I was making a very nice, very solid six-figure living, heavy six-figure living for quite a few years before I built this company, knowing I was going to have to take a step back and actually take a massive pay cut to go into business for myself. And so I told myself, in order to do that, I had to learn about entrepreneurship in a different way. I needed to become a jack of all trades, but a master of none, so that I could hire the right people to build this company with me, because there's no way I was going to do it myself. And so what I did was I took 10 minutes a day to go learn a new skill, whether that was lead generation, email funnels, social media management. There were moments where I did leadership development. There were moments where I would go over what my profit and loss really should look like and where my budget should be broken down from a business perspective based on my service model. I mean, I literally went and pulled my business apart. I knocked it out for 30 days and I said, every day I'm going to do 10 minutes. And I can tell you right now, I was not motivated. I was tired. I did not want to do it. But that small increment, being able to train it that way and just having, okay, I can do 10 minutes. We can all do 10 minutes. If you told me go read for 2 hours, I'd be like, kick rocks, sir. Absolutely not. But 10 minutes, sure, I can do that. And then if I got into a topic I was really fascinated by, I would rabbit hole it. And that's great. Yeah. But if I got to a topic, I'm like, this is not for me. We're going to hire somebody for this when I have enough money, then we will. And so for the person that has no money and is not motivated, there's this beautiful thing called Google, and it's free. Take 10 minutes a day, utilize that bad boy, find something. And if you don't know what you're interested in, jump on things like what is it? I'm thinking my podcast listen, I'm jumbling all the names. But if you don't know anything about anything, get on like the world news podcast and learn about a bunch of different topics. You can learn everything from nature to economics to real estate to tech, logistics and supply chain management, how to make chocolate. Like, you can learn anything.
World News Podcast.
Yeah, there's different world news podcasts. I can send you guys a list and we can link it. I have about 12 that I listen to weekly, as I'm on a lot of planes. A lot of planes.
Yeah.
So your girl listens to a lot of podcasts. But I like to learn. And so if you don't have a hunger for learning, give yourself 5 to 10 minutes a day. It will get you out of that rut.
Yeah, definitely like that and agree with that for sure. You got any? I know I probably cut you off.
I'm just listening. I'm just here.
He's like, I'm taking notes.
Yeah, basically, I am taking notes.
Well, you know me, I gotta say it, or I'm gonna forget
Yeah, you're gonna forget it. You're gonna remember it in a week and tell me you should have asked it.
Oh, we should have asked for that.
Yeah. So, obviously, you sit down, you talk to a lot of people about, their money and their finances. I want to ask, are there any crazy stories that have come from this? Obviously, without disclosing too much, but is there anything crazy or outrageous that you can kind of share with us? Because I'm interested in things that people do with their money when they have almost too much for them to handle.
Do you want a success story, or do you want a, oh my God, that was dumb story?
That's a very yes to both of those.
I was like, which side do you want me to roll through here? I guess I can tell you guys about this one. No names mentioned. But this was an NFLer that I worked with a long time ago, and not that long, maybe 5-6 years ago. Really cool dude. And we talked about environment, centers of influence, things that influence you. Well, let me tell you, he had a really bad center of influence around him, and got him into one of our classes. I'd had him for a couple of years at this point, and we were discussing his net worth, because I do a lot of net worth training with second, third, and fourth year guys, and how does it work and where you at. And his net worth had gone down quite a bit. And I was like, what's going on, man? Because you had signed a really big contract. He said, well, I made kind of a bad decision. And I was like, well, what did you do? And he said, I bought that new house. I was like, that wasn't a bad decision. We worked together. He goes, no, the house wasn't the problem. And I was like, well, what was the problem? He goes, well, I hired 2 of my family members to do the interior design, and I gave them my credit card. And I was like, okay. I said, and of course I'm really trying to rein it in, right? Because I know where this is going, but I also need to just be very diplomatic. And I was like, so tell me how much they spent. And he goes, well, like this month or like in total? And I said,
oh gosh.
I said, let's start with in total. And he's like, well, $380,000. And I was like, oh fuck. And I was like, okay. And I said, what did they buy? And he's like, well, that's the thing. My house is still empty. And I went, sir, Okay, so that was a bit of a financial misstep. We're gonna need to cancel the credit card. He's like,
Yeah.
yeah. He goes, I took it away last month. I was like, okay, and he can pay for it. Like this mishap is 100% on him because he couldn't say no. So here's the factors, though, right? Like we hear that and we're like, what an idiot. He's actually
Mm-hmm.
not. These are his immediate family members. These are people he trusts. These are
Right.
people that have been with him for his whole life. And they were supposed to be helping him, but they got caught by the Vegas lights, baby, and they didn't do what they said they were going to do. So there was a lot of stuff, and he also wasn't home because this happened during season. So like
Mm.
he couldn't check that his house was being filled up with the stuff they were buying because he wasn't there. So by the time we met up again, it was April for OTAs, which is off-season training. This all had occurred in season from September to like January. And so he's like, yeah, so my house is still empty. He's like, I did get a bed though. And I was like, well, that's a start. Great. Okay.
Okay.
And I mean, and you guys, like, the humor I have with this is exactly how I respond to them because I don't have any other way to do it. But he said, he's like, so like, how much did that 380,000 cost me? And I said, long term, quite a few million. Like just realistically, in your investment account, had you let that grow for 20, 30 years, just say you plugged it into the S&P 500 and it's at 10%, which is the average. That doesn't happen every year, but that's the average for the last 30 years. I was like, you would have 5x that money in 30 years. And he's like, oh. I said, so you would have been sitting like around 2 million, somewhere around 2 million was the math that we did on it. And that was just on that 380 he lost. So imagine like the other money he was spending, right? And I said, it's not, and it did change his generational wealth capacity. Just like for the record, he isn't going to be able to do some of the things he wanted to do. Like he's going to have to work a little longer from that mishap. So those happen. They happen to everybody. Ours in the real world, when we're not in the NFL bubble or the NBA bubble, is like we spend $300 at a steakhouse and it blows our budget for 2 months. Their numbers are just, they have like 5 or 6 more zeros behind them.
Yeah.
And so it feels so much worse because the numbers are so much larger. That said, he feels the same way someone who makes $2,000 a month feels when they overspend like on a dinner for $300. They've literally blown 10% of their budget on one dinner, right? So if you just look at the numbers, statistically, we all make big mistakes like NFL players do. We just don't have as many zeros behind it. So perspective, know your environment, manage your emotions, learn to say no. Like if you can't afford it, no, just don't do it. I know that sucks because it means we don't get the experiences all the time, but man, pick and choose your battles because financial stress is a whole lot worse than 3 hours at the Lakers game with courtside seats. Sorry, it just is.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that one's heavy, right?
That's tough.
I like that,
especially with it because it's your family, man.
That's, these are the people you're supposed to trust the most with your money. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you just have to be careful. I mean, I have success stories for days. I have more success stories by leaps and bounds than I do mishaps, honestly.
So that means you're doing a great job. So shout out to you.
Trying to. But give credit to the guys because they're coming in and asking for the information. They're coming in and saying, I don't want to be broke 30 for 30. I do not want to be all of the guys. Like I don't want to be that guy.
Was it Delonte West, right? We played with LeBron for the Cavaliers.
Yeah. Tough life.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, you have guys paying $150,000 in child support a month. Like there's just, it is the life. Like it is what it is.
I can name somebody who's probably paying way more than that.
I can name a few, but we're not going to name names. And honestly, what people don't realize is when you have a child support lien against you, it's public record. So you can pull it. Like it depends on what state you're in. Some states have different privacy laws, but like if you have back child support you haven't paid, you can pull record on that and actually see like who has not paid their child support. And that doesn't go for just NFL players. That's anyone in the country. So some of these records, and depending on what state you're in, this very public information, which is how the media gets a hold of certain little tidbits of things, is because a lot of it is public record. And depending on, right. So like Wyoming, good luck finding anything on anybody who's in Wyoming because Wyoming has the best security laws of any state in the country. Like they're fantastic. I love Wyoming. Can't say enough. There's nobody there.
Yeah,
but it's
probably
a great place.
A lot easier to regulate things over there since it's grass pretty much over there.
I mean, I think they have 7 electric cars in the whole state was the last stat I read.
Oh my gosh.
But and you know what? I live in Idaho, so like I'm right there. Me and Wyoming are homies. Like
Oh yeah.
we're buddies. I love Wyoming, but no, their actual governance, their security laws are some of the best for consumers. They protect the individual, and I really think that's great. But places like New York,
Oh yeah.
Illinois, California, open book.
So yeah, that's that makes a lot of sense because in those big market areas, I imagine that they probably don't want to put as much restriction on those things, or maybe it's just harder to like just regulate because of how large the markets are over there. I assume.
That might be part of it.
Do you talk over here in Tampa?
I've worked with the Bucks before. Yeah, been down there with Tyler and Duke. They're great. I was down there last year.
I'll let you know if they come out to the club.
Please don't. I don't want to know.
No. We actually we don't tax our guys. We actually like take care of them. They never pay full price. So that's I think a reason why they.
Well, and the financial coach in me appreciates you.
Yes.
But I also just don't want to know because like.
Do you what is your so we both work at the club.
Yeah.
In Nightlife, what do you tell your guys about entertainment?
Which part of entertainment? Like what segment of entertainment?
Nightlife, strip clubs.
Specifically, don't take your debit card. The only thing you need on you is your ID. Don't carry any cash and make sure your phone stays on you at all times. Because the last thing that I want is a guy to put his credit card down, someone to walk by the table, snap a picture of the back of his card, shoot it out to the chick that's sitting in the car, ordering on Amazon, having it delivered to a locker, 2-hour delivery to an Amazon locker in Tampa, and walking away with $30,000 worth of gear. And this guy's still in the club 3 hours later, can't figure out why his credit card's maxed.
This sounds very specific.
It's happened multiple times. It's happened a few times.
With anything, your ID, your phone.
Your ID and Apple Pay on your phone, and make sure your phone stays in your pocket.
Front pocket. Yeah, that's a big one. Front pocket.
Front pocket, not back.
Yeah.
And if anyone walks by you with anything that looks like a box or a magnetized anything, you need to move away immediately because they're scanning for information. My guys are targets. Like at the end of the day, let's be real. They're targets. People know they have money. And women are smart. We are clever.
Yeah.
We are very clever. And financial security is the hardest thing to protect because it's when we make a mistake, we don't talk about it. So if a guy does mess up, I'm usually the first or second call after they call their team security and let them know. I can't help them if they lose cash. I can't help them if they give their debit card to somebody because that's consent. I can help them get their money back for the most part, almost always when it's a debit or a credit card. But again, why would you even risk that? Just take your phone and do Apple Pay. And if the club doesn't accept Apple Pay, like go to a different club.
Literally.
Sorry to the club owners out there, but I'm looking at this from a safety perspective.
The less you bring to the club, the better. Because especially with people snagging, stealing phones, wallets, and stuff like that. Like I've been there for 5 years now, and the amount of stories you see or hear from phones, IDs, wallets, all that stuff getting stolen or even lost.
Keep your ID on you. Don't let the bartender take it to hold a tab or anything. Like you've got to keep your ID because the second someone has your ID and your card information, it's a wrap. Now they know where you live. Now they're able to access your bank account information. They know where you bank, which is a problem because if they have a copy of your ID, they can go replicate it at FedEx and open bank accounts in your name. Like it's sadly not hard to assume someone's identity. Now, it's a little harder to assume a celebrity's identity because they're a little bit more well-known. But I have had it happen to people at every team I've worked in. I've had someone steal my credit card and debit card information. God forbid it's ever my actual social security number. That would be an absolute atrocity. But that takes years to come back from. The idea that I love nightlife, like go enjoy yourself, but do it safely. And that is, do not go by yourself. I don't care if you are an O lineman at 350 pounds. Do not go by yourself. You're asking for trouble. And phone and ID, and that's it. And make sure your ID goes between your phone and your phone case so that it is out of sight and no one can take a picture of it. Nobody needs to know where you live because if you're in the club and they have your address, your house is now a target. Right? So you have to think through working in a bank for a long time. Every fraud scenario that could have possibly happened while I worked in a bank. So I saw a lot of it. And then working with the league, the targeted schemes against guys through nightlife is a big deal.
Yeah, because you already know that they got at least a little bit of money. If
You
you're, if you're,
assume
if
they
you're,
do.
if yeah,
Whether
yeah,
they've kept it in their bank account is a different story.
yeah, that is true as well.
But also like celebrity women, fashion models, TV and movie stars, like for them, it's even a little bit more risky. So the entertainers that I do work with, like my MMA fighters or supercross guys or like any of those groups, they may not be as well known, but they still have fans. If you have a fandom of any kind, your security level with your finances needs to be 10 times better.
All right, so once this podcast starts making money, then we gotta
Yeah.
we gotta hire you.
If I hire me for what? I don't do security. I got somebody for that. I just don't do it
Oh well,
myself.
we'll outsource. Get your security people. We'll hire
For
you to coach
sure.
us up. What everything.
I can't say her name because she's a ghost, so we don't talk about her.
Exactly. Yeah, we like those kind of people.
She's
Under the radar.
She's clutch.
Yeah, we like that.
Yeah.
We're not even gonna say it's a she, you know.
You still never find her, even if I say it's a she.
Oh, okay, yeah. There's plenty.
Yeah.
It's,
No, not gonna happen.
International Women's Day, so we love women in the workplace that are making a difference. So, how does a bank work? Like, what do you say you want?
He's like, I'm tripping on this thing.
I forgot about that part. You said everyone should have that
work at a bank.
Yeah, 1 year bank experience. What can you give us the Cliff Notes version of that? Like, what all you learned?
Yeah, so I'll give you a very condensed, like how a bank works and what you need to know. So banks are institutions that take deposits and lend those deposits to people for more money. That's it. That is what a bank does. A bank takes deposits from a consumer and then turns around and makes auto loans, mortgages, business loans, and they charge the consumer that's borrowing the money 5 to 12%. Let's just use those interest rates. But when you deposit your money with a bank, they pay you 0.01%, right? But the benefit of a bank, and they're very, very important, is they allow you to conduct business, and business doesn't have to be business to business. Business can be a consumer buying groceries. It allows you to conduct business with ease, monitor and track your transactions, and see everything in real time. So banks serve a very vital purpose. The way that they operate and how they actually work, people don't know how that works. So they get mad when banks do certain things. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, if you overdraw your account, guys, you're borrowing money from the bank to pay for what you need to pay for. So that's taking out a loan. They're charging you to borrow money. I know overdraft fees suck, but that means we got to money manage better. And I don't agree with all overdraft fee charges. I don't condone that shit either. But I also realize like you have to understand both sides. And I'm very much a middle of the line, like give me both sides and let me understand how it works. So what I took away from banking is if you don't handle actual transactions on a daily basis, you're not learning how money moves. You're not seeing how businesses conduct business. Did you know every time that you swipe your credit card at any company that you go purchase something at, on the back end, they're getting charged 3% from their credit card vendor?
I didn't know every company was like that. But
every company deals with that. Yep. The credit card companies then take their cut to manage all of the transactions on said credit cards, right? So there's a chain of command in all of this. And people don't realize that a lot of those fees get passed through to the consumer as those fees jack up, right? But it's cost of doing business. So we have to figure out, is the cost of doing business fair? So with banking, it's deposits come into the bank then turns around and only a portion of the deposits can be lent out. They have to keep what's called a liquidity ratio. Every bank has to have a certain amount of cash on hand at all times. And then they lend out that money. They make their interest, which pays for the bank itself, all the employees, board of directors, all the peoples. Everybody's happy. But they have shareholders. Those shareholders invest in that bank. They need to get their money back. So banks are a for-profit business. They are not there to be your friend. They're there to make money. And they are a way for you to conduct your normal life. So I always look at banks as a tool. They're not my friend. They're not there to make me money, but they are there for me to conduct my financial life however I see fit. And so that's what I learned from banking. And then of course, just how transactions work, how they catch people that are money laundering. You go through all sorts of anti-money laundering training. You go through all sorts of fraud training. I learned how to audit a bank account to see if somebody opened a bank account falsely, which is where you go through and you make sure that person's actually real. There's all sorts of crazy things that you learn, and people try to get away with stuff in banking. It's very hard to do these days because technology is smarter than we are.
Yeah, so good.
But yeah, that's how banks actually work. The whole sole purpose of banks, the reason they were designed was so that people could conduct business and move money. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's designed for. So if you understand that and you understand how a bank makes money, you can then capitalize on that system. And what I mean by that is if you know the bank's paying you 0.01%, but you can put your money in, let's say, a high yield savings account that's paying you 4% or 5%,
Mm-hmm.
why wouldn't you put your money there, let it work for you, and just conduct your normal business out of your standard bank?
Right.
Or better yet, if you don't need that chunk of change, find a really good financial advisor or a robo advisor. If you don't want to pay somebody and you want to use like Fidelity's robo advisor or E-Trade's robo advisor, they will help you design a portfolio to invest that money if you're willing to take the risk. So you don't have to just keep stacks of money in a bank. In fact, that's not actually a smart thing to do. Now the banks would like you to. And
Yeah, of course.
I'd say 90% of consumers just stack money in a bank and they don't make anything off of it. I am about, okay, there are banks that will pay you more to deposit your money there because they know they can lend it out at higher rates. Go make your 4 or 5% risk free. Let's go. And if you want to invest it, you're going to take on risk, but you might earn a little bit more. Then for the money that you got to operate on, put that in any bank you want. They all do the same damn thing. If you're not traveling nationwide, then a community bank or regional bank or credit union, solid. If you travel for a living and you need a national bank and you need to be able to use ATMs in any state, get a big bank. Big banks have better business interest rates. Credit unions and regional banks do better on car loans and mortgages. Like everything operates, each bank has a specialty and they do things really, really well. Like Chase Bank is absolutely known for their credit cards, the Chase Sapphire and the Freedom Card, right? They're very, very good at that. Wells Fargo is actually known for its business banking, although you'll hear a lot of people complain about it. They have very, very good business banking products. Consumer banking for big banks, US Bank happens to be one of the better ones. Bank of America kind of rates low on everybody's totem pole for everything. Sorry, Bank of America.
For the longest.
Sorry, B of A. Like I have no skin in the game with any of these banks. Like I don't care what people like. This is just the consumer consensus.
Right.
And then with credit unions, pay where you play. Like just figure out what works in your neighborhood type of a thing.
Yeah,
and then regional banks are like 10 to 15 states instead of nationwide.
Okay. I paid Bank of America a lot of money in interest on a credit card that I got when I was younger.
Oh yeah, they got you on it, huh?
Yeah. I don't even want to calculate it. But now I pay them off every month. But I use credit cards very frequently. So what's your thoughts on using credit cards for like the perks? So I use like the Bilt one, and I use the Apple one sometimes, but that's only like 3%. But Bilt, I think it's through Wells Fargo, you can actually like get points based off paying rent.
Yeah, so that's a secured credit card to help you build credit, like really build credit quickly. But the points can be redeemed for travel, gift cards, stuff like that, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So once you've mastered your money game, the way I put that is you understand your budget and you know what you can and can't spend every month. If you can put all of your expenses except for maybe rent, because most credit cards will not let you pay rent on it. The Wells Fargo credit card is one of the few exceptions. Put all your bills on your credit card and then pay it off at the end of the month. This is not like a get out of jail free card. You still got to pay that shit off in full every month. You've got to. But if you use it to pay all of your bills, the stuff you have to pay for, and you get points or rewards for the things you have to pay for, you're actually getting a little bit back in your pocket every single month for the stuff that life throws at us. So for example, for me, on my business, and I'll use real numbers, I have no problem sharing. I have one business card that pays for certain expenses every month. It's $3,000 a month. And that card gives me 4 times the points for the things I have to pay for on it, because I specifically chose that card for this expense. So I get 12,000 points a month on that card. And that card pays for 5 round trip tickets a year anywhere I want to go in the United States, just off that business expense, because I picked that card for that thing. Right? Now, not everybody's spending $3,000 a month on a credit card. More than aware of that. That's a business expense. It's not me personally just going through 3 racks. It's not happening. That's for the business. But I take all of those points and I actually gift them to my contractors. That's their Christmas present. So I gift them a trip and I just give them the points because then they can go buy whatever they want. They can go wherever they want. And to me, that's more valuable than if I were to swipe a debit card or write a check, because I'm actually getting something for it. Money's still changing hands the same way. It's just 30 days later instead of instantly. And I'm getting something for it. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of doing that.
What is that card that you use for travel? Is that like
I use the American Express Gold Platinum.
Okay, yeah, that one. I use the Hilton one, but the Hilton Amex.
Yeah, Hilton's good. That's just Hilton rewards points though.
Yeah. Now I'm like debating on changing because I have like a lot of points I don't really use. But that credit limit's so high because I use it.
Don't close it. Never close it. Your oldest.
Never close.
Yeah.
I
No,
heard,
no,
yeah,
no.
I heard that one. Don't close it. Yeah, I'm not gonna close it.
Yeah.
But so just add on another one.
Yeah, just get it up. And your oldest credit card's your oldest friend. You can use it once a year, keep it open.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to use it for everything. I had a Marriott card, same as Hilton on American Express. And I was like, yeah, I don't need this many Marriott points because that's where we stay when I'm with the NFL. And I'm like a platinum status member. I was like, I'm never going to use all these hotel points. Oh my God, what am I going to do with this? So I canceled the card and got the gold. And I can use it for anything I want: travel, cashback, statement credit. So figure out what you actually want to use it for.
Yeah. But yeah, I hear a lot of good things about that one, the gold one. Is that the $250 a year one, or is that the $750?
$395.
Oh, I'm off on both of them, I guess.
You're
right.
It's the business one though, so I don't know what the consumer one is because I haven't looked at the consumer one in a while.
There's a lot of different ones.
There's a ton of different card options. If you want no annual fee, which a lot of people do, Chase Freedom it's been named the best cashback card on the market for like 5 years running, followed really closely by the Discover It card because it gives you 5% cash back in certain categories quarterly. It's really sad that I know all of this, by the way, as I'm saying this. I'm like, wow, I spend too much time on
these numbers off very comfortably.
I've watched some YouTube. Yeah, the numbers. Yeah, you're good at numbers for sure. I've watched some YouTubes on like credit cards. That's how I built one.
Yeah, and Built's a great one to like get you started so that you can get something for your rent and or build credit. Long term, it's not going to give you the rewards that an American Express or like a Chase Sapphire or a US Bank leverage card will give you.
That's what I realized because I spent a lot of money on that thing over the past 2 years. But I'm like, it's like I can buy half a flight. I was like, what's the point of this? So I was like, okay.
It's more of a credit builder than it is a points card. So now that you've done it, you have the credit, go get one.
And to get something, well, I've had a credit card for 16.
Probably longer than you should have.
Since I was like 17. Yeah, really, really not. I shouldn't have had it that young, but yeah, I've had a credit card for a long time and killed my credit and then rebuilt it.
A lot of people do that. Yep.
College did that. It was not pretty. It went from a 715 to a 414.
Ooh, ouch.
Yeah, it was bad.
Ouch.
Were you trying? That sounded like you were.
No, that's just maxing stuff out and not making payments. Maxing out, not making payments.
That's basically what happened. And then, you got to learn life the hard way sometimes. Yeah. But we're just back to 750, so we're good.
Oh, there you go. Right in the good category.
It took a long, It took a long time to get back up, but we're funny. Good there. I guess I need to get the Amex though, because
it's like it's time. I'm going to start doing this now.
For all the daily stuff, I'd rather just rack up points so I could get free flights. Because that one I didn't really look into it too much. I just knew, you get paid, you get points for rent. And then I'm like, you used it for everything for like a year and a half, 2 years. I'm like, I can't buy a flight. I could buy like half a flight right now. So I was a little confused. So Amex, you used the business one.
Yeah, I don't use that for my travel miles though. I have cards for each airline I travel on pretty regularly so that I get mileage status with all those airlines. You have to keep in mind though, I'm on the road like 40 weeks a year.
You are,
yeah. So I have a whole different credit card setup than most people would. For an average, like just normal person who flies a couple times a year, maybe 5 to 6 tops, you need 3 basic credit cards. The first one is going to be your everyday card that you do almost all your transactions on. The next one is going to be a card that focuses on whatever types of vacations you want. That could be a mileage card. That could be like a Hilton Honors card. It could be an American Airlines card. It could be a United card, whatever. Having a mileage card isn't a bad thing. And then the third one is having a backup credit card that you just have access to a credit limit if you need it. That's like your emergency credit card. It could be something like a Discover card. It needs to be a 0 annual fee card. You don't need to be paying annual fees on 2 of the 3. But just having those and being able to know when to use them and when their benefits kick in and be able to use them appropriately. If you can build yourself up to 3, you're actually doing yourself a service by understanding how the rewards work and then maximizing them.
So I should get a Delta card.
If you fly Delta, absolutely.
I like Delta. I do like Delta. Delta is probably my favorite. So
there you go.
But Bill is not giving me enough points. So
no. It's a great starter card though. So like, don't dig on Wells. It's a really good starter card.
It
need to build credit.
I have a lot. I have like 2 Bank of America ones. I have 1 Capital one that never gets used. I made like $600 over the lifetime of the Bank of America card.
See, there you go. So there's
It's still,
rewards.
I haven't even touched it. Yeah, so there's rewards in it. I have a few. The
It's just like it's
the
hacking the
Hilton.
system. Play the
Yeah.
game, learn how it works, and then maximize it. And we're not taught how it works. So people get frustrated when they don't know, oh, wait, I can get credit card points for all the stuff I have to buy. Like, I'm not going crazy. I'm not doing anything I wouldn't normally do. I'm
Hmm.
just using a different payment method for all the stuff I have to
Mhm.
buy, and I get something for
Yeah.
it. Why didn't we learn this in high school? Like, I could have done without Chinese economics in 2006. Like, I could have done
Chinese
without that in high school.
economics.
I could have absolutely learned about hacking the credit card system and like how this shit works in real life. And oh, by the way, you need credit to get an apartment. What?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
right.
Right? But I could tell you how the Chinese economic system went from 1200 AD to like 1500 AD, whatever.
Mhm.
Crazy the shit that we learn.
Gotta love it. You have any other questions?
Yeah. Well, I want to.
I know, I do, but I wanted to give you
Yeah, I know.
opportunity.
Brandon's gonna be here all day. So,
I do like to learn too, you know,
Yeah.
especially about money.
this is very good. I think this is very good information. Well, obviously here we talk a lot about relationships, so I want to
Yeah.
talk about money in relationships, money and relationships, how
Let's do
these
it.
things kind of coincide. So of course you deal with a lot of athletes, and then obviously you have your own personal life as well. What's advice that you give to people when they're getting into relationships, when they're, because obviously if they're with somebody, I'm assuming that's something that they mention when it comes to their finances and how to
Yes.
manage it. So I'm curious about how
Prenup.
you advise them on things like that, and then also how you incorporate that in your personal life as well.
Yeah. So relationships are the trickiest thing we ever enter into.
Mhm.
And I say that not, there's no shade on it at all. My interpersonal relationships are my life. I love the people that are in my life that I choose to have there. That said, introducing money into relationships can change the dynamics. So specifically with my pro athletes, the conversation looks very different than if I was introducing money to someone like myself who's just a small business owner who lives in Boise, Idaho, right?
Mhm.
We're going to have two very different conversations. They'll follow a similar path, but they're not going to be the same. So for a pro athlete, first thing I'm going to ask them is, how long have you been together? Are you recently together? Are you married? Are you divorced? Like, I need to know your marital status so I understand how you're thinking about money, because all of those places within a relationship actually change how you think about money, believe it or not. When you're first starting out, everyone's trying to figure out who pays for what, right? Like,
Mhm.
am I supposed to pay for that? Am I obligated to pay for that? Those types of things. When you're actively dating someone and living with them, the dynamic has changed. You are now actually having to talk about money and who's paying rent, who's paying utilities. So you have an open dialogue about where money is moving and how it's flowing, but you may not have insight into what is in that person's account, right?
Mhm.
We're not going to be like deep diving. Okay, so I've got $1,000,005 in retirement. Like I got
Right.
250,000 at this bank. No, we're not quite there yet. Between serious to married, that's when those conversations really start to happen. And that's when the dynamic tends to shift a little bit, when the real raw numbers are put out in front of people. And I always tell my players, you can't just like hit your girl with, all right, so we're going to sit down and talk about money right now. That is not how we talk about money. This is not how we do things. You need to go to your girl and say, hey, I really want to share my finances with you. Is there a good time for us to sit down, have you come to the table with your stuff, have me come to the table with mine, and actually go through this as a team for the next hour or two?
Mhm.
If you approach it like that, the other party, whether it is a female entertainer or a pro athlete, right? Because you can role reverse these all day.
Right.
But whoever has the most money and needs to talk about it, they usually are the first ones to introduce the conversation. Just full transparency. They're usually the ones like, hey, we need to talk this out. But if you come at your person like, okay, so this is how it's going to go. No, that's not going to work, because you've now put defenses up. That other person is
Right.
like, why are you coming at me? Money is sensitive. And we don't know if that person is coming at the conversation with scarcity mentality, abundance. Maybe they
Mhm.
don't have any money education at all, and they don't know anything about how money moves because someone's always done it for them.
Right.
So we have to learn where they're at. So when you introduce it as a conversation and say, bring what your questions to the table, because I promise you, if you're going to talk to your person about money, you have questions, especially if you haven't talked about it a lot. Like, you're going to have questions. How do you anticipate this is going to go? What are the bank account balances, right? Like easy questions. What's your credit score? I mean, that's my first question on a first date is like, all right, homie, I need to know your credit score. I would never actually ask
That's
somebody
a
that.
first date question.
You know,
That is-
mine. You know mine already.
You were cracking me up.
You know how bad it used to be too.
I do, and I know you rebuilt it. No, my security gal tells me what their credit score is before we go on a date. Like, let's just be real.
Before, during, or after the date, do you get that information?
Before, your girl doesn't go on a date without a background check.
Yeah, I'm not going. See you.
No, really, like I don't. I will not go on a date without a background check. It's gotta happen. It's gotta happen first because you just never know if that person's married or
Boundaries are important, but
there are just certain things you gotta know. And I don't mean that.
I feel like you're speaking from experience.
I am, because I went on a date with a guy and I thought he was single. He was freaking married. He was still living with his wife. And I was like, you know what?
So not even separated yet? That's crazy.
No, they were still married. And he's like, well, we're just kind of like figuring it out. I'm like, what in the world? Now, mind you, this was like 10 years ago. So this was a long time ago, but it scarred me for life. So I was like,
can only imagine.
it just wasn't for me. So, no, but real talk, like if you're having these conversations with your partner, there's phases to the conversations, and the depth of the conversations is basically what I'm getting at with those phases we're talking about. And when you're married, you are in business with that person. You have to run your business as the CEOs of your company and the CFOs. Like, you have to run it like a business, because if one of you gets off track, the other one has to hold you accountable. And when it comes to somebody who makes a lot more than the other person, that can be a really tough conversation. So being able to help these guys set boundaries for their spouse, but also for themselves, because my job is also to make sure that the wives and or girlfriends, if they're in that state still, are in a good place as well and financially protected. So saying, hey, if you're going to not have these conversations with her, this might be a deal breaker for her. And so explaining to them the boundaries that come with being in a committed relationship. And that, when it comes to money, can be the scariest and hardest thing. And it can take months to work through. And for those guys that really can't overcome the hurdle, sometimes I suggest counseling, because there's a deeper seated issue that is not, as a financial coach, I can't get into all of the things all the time. So it's like, hey man, you really need to go talk to someone, because if you can't even talk to me about this, like you're never going to talk to your girl about it. And I'm in their finances, like I'm in their bank accounts, so I know what's going on.
Stuff from you.
Yeah, it's hard to hide things from me. Sometimes they get nervous when I see their bank statements. They're like, oh my God, she's going to see where I went. I was like, I know where you went. I'm not stupid. Like, let's just keep it moving. But it doesn't matter. I mean, it's they can live however they want. But the important piece is communication and money, and introducing money into any relationship can complicate it, or it can actually make it easy, depending on how you introduce it, when you introduce it, and how open you are to the conversation.
So for those guys who are just getting into the league, because right now what we see, unfortunately, with a lot of those young athletes is they're getting a lot of women pregnant early in their careers. Do you give those guys who aren't in a relationship, who are actively, let's call it dating at that point, is there a specific thing that you kind of relate to them as they're coming into this amount of money, and then also are going to be out there on the market?
Yeah, for sure. Don't let the $10 sundress cost you $100,000 in your boat. Like, let's just, and there's a picture. The girl is a smoke show. She is like a 12 out of 10. She's gorgeous. But here's the thing. Access is easy, right? Yeah. Access is easy when you're a pro athlete, and temptation when you're young is also very, very easy to succumb to. And so I don't expect these guys to be perfect. I would just like them to wrap it up so we don't have a 22-year annuity.
There we go.
And the thing is they can take that advice. I'm not the only one giving it, and I'm just a financial coach, so they hear it from me only a couple times. But if they do get someone pregnant, okay, cool. Now we have a different set of things we got to work through. No judgment. I don't care. We're going to just work through our current situation. Like, what do we need to do now? So that's when I come in and I say, okay, we have XYZ steps we have to follow in order to make sure you're financially secure, because we do have a child on the way. And now we're talking about another human. Like, this isn't just like, oh, you knock some chick up. Oh, hell no. You actually have a child on the way. Like, there's another human being coming into the world. So we got to talk about what that looks like. And and come at it from a place of a real conversation, because everyone wants to throw shade and throw jokes and oh, another athlete knocked up this chick. And it's like, well, sometimes it's not just about that. Sometimes there are other factors at play. And so I jokingly will be like, you knock someone up, great. Okay. But I will always come back and say, okay, let's figure it out. Let's work through what the next steps are going to be. But if we can avoid it altogether,
yeah.
Some of it
there's
is.
condoms in the
Some of it's
facility
not.
there for you, grab one.
Right.
Some of it is, some of it isn't. I know two people off the top of my head that probably need to listen to that thing. That's why I marked the clip from when you started talking about it. The most importantly, like that money talk once you get into the third stage. But you also talk about the first stage of like figuring out who pays for what.
It's hard.
You are I would say, extremely influential woman in the marketplace. Do you like just believe in the patriarchy role, like that the man should on a first date and first month, or what's that look
I'm
like in your
50-50
head?
on the rule for other people. I know where my line is, if that makes
What's your
sense.
line?
I don't let anybody pay for me until the 5th date when I know that this is somebody that I'm going to continue dating. I hadn't, and like real talk, haven't been on a 5th date in a decade. So nobody has paid for my food on a real true date in 10 years. I was in a relationship for a couple of years from 2023 to end of 2024. So beginning of 23 to end of 24. We did not live in the same place. So we never had to share expenses. Everything was like he paid for him and I paid for me. So we never had to have that conversation. So up until meeting him, I didn't really have to worry about anything. Like I paid for my shit and he paid for his and we were good. Now when we were dating and we would go on dates, we had an agreement that everything was 50-50. And the reason for that is we each have our own households. We each have our own businesses. Like we are established people in our late 30s. It's not dating in our 20s. And we're not trying to build a family together in one house, in one place. So we set guidelines and boundaries. We actually sat down and discussed it. And I was like, how do you feel about this? Where is your line here? And we had hard conversations and it worked out. Like we agreed.
So you brought that conversation up to say, hey, this is how we're going to do this when we're going out, or was that something that he brought up?
Like on the first date?
Honestly, it came up naturally. When we were getting ready to, I was visiting him. He was in Texas at one point because he travels for work. Visiting him in Texas on like I don't know, we'd been together a few months at this point, and we were getting ready to go out with his friends. And he said, "Hey, I just want to let you know that I'm going to take care of dinner tonight. I know that we normally split things." He said, "But we're going out in front of my friends." And he's like, he is a traditional guy. And so he's like, I'm going to be very offended if you pay for the bill. And I said, cool, no problem. Like, I understand where you're coming from. I said, but that means that when we go to the movies tomorrow, I'm going to cover that. And he goes, yeah, no, that's fine. And so it came up pretty naturally. And then that led us to future conversations. Had he not said that, I would have assumed 50-50 and we would have just kept rolling that way. But I set those boundaries up front with people because I don't think it's fair to assume anything when it comes to relationships or dating. It's not fair to assume anybody has money or that anyone's going to pay. So just asking the question, how would you like to handle our first date? Do you want to pay? Do you want to split it? Or can I pay? And asking the question, even though it might be uncomfortable, it's also going to uncover whether or not you want to even go on a first date with somebody.
Yeah. So all the ladies listening,
bullshit detector.
It's the thing is it's a super tough, I think, for the guy in that situation, right? Because for us, if a girl were to ask me that question, I would feel like it's a test just automatically. And so if I said 50-50 and she's like, okay, got it, and then I never hear from her again. So it's I think that's kind of where, unfortunately, kind of social media and kind of how all these things have come about have kind of shaped the men's mindset when we hear questions like that. So it doesn't always feel like it's supposed to be an open and honest conversation. Right. It just feels like it's supposed to be like a test to see how this is going to go, to see if she's going to even talk to me after this.
Well, so I think that's the shitty part about 2025 dating is like everybody wants a 1990s relationship in 2025. I've seen that quote about 18 times now.
Yeah.
And we are in a world where when my dad was dating my mom, he was the breadwinner of the house. Like we had 1950s traditions until the late 80s. That was how America worked. And then In 1987, when women had the right to actually open a bank account and own their own home without a man, that was the first year, mind you, that a woman could own a home without a man's signature on it. In 1987, the year I was born, things started to change and women were able to actually make money. And as soon as that happened, it shifted the dynamics of how traditional money relationships ran. And so we're kind of in this whole new era of how does money work, and like how do relationships and money work when the woman might make as much as the guy or make more than the guy. And we can't shade either gender for saying, hey, like, I don't have a huge salary, but I would like to take you out. How would you feel about going here? And I agree with you. I think a lot of women do use it as a test. But my question then would be, do you want to date a woman because she's going out with you so you pay for her food?
Right. Absolutely not. You don't.
And if her answer is, well, if I have to split this with you, I don't want to go out, chances are she might not be the right one. Now, there are going to be women in the Deep South that are like, I'm a traditionalist. And that's great. Okay, so you do expect the man to pay, but explain why. Explain where you came from. Explain, hey, I grew up in a household where dad took care of everything. And it's, in my world, I anticipate you to pay for the first date. Okay, if someone came to me and said that, I'd be like, okay, cool, respect. Like, I get it. I know how you grew up. But if someone's like, I just assume you're going to pay. Woo, red light. This again, though, is where personality differences become a hot topic. And I'm sure there are going to be people that see this that are like, I do not like her automatically because she said 50-50, or I do not like her because she pays for her own.
Right.
I do that because my expectation shouldn't be on who's paying for my food. It's the conversation I have with that person and whether or not I can see me going on a second date with them. Because I'd like to spend an hour with you. And my first date rule is 1 hour. At 1 hour, I'm gone. Whether I like you or not, my time is valuable. I'm out. And I don't go to meals. I go to coffee.
Yeah.
So if I'm
coffee first time, we had an
because
episode about that. I'm like, coffee for the first date always. You gotta vibe them out.
Right. And if they are going to pay for your $5 coffee, awesome. Go to town. Like, have a good time. It's a $5 coffee. You're not asking for a $50 steak dinner. But set the expectation and then hold your boundaries in dating. Dating is rough. Okay. Being my late 30s and very single, dating sucks. And I don't do it. Like, I don't date. I don't go on dates. I haven't been on a date. Like, I just don't do it because I don't even want to open a dating app. It makes me sick. But if someone were to ask me on a date, I would have a hard line in the sand that would be, let's go to coffee. I'll buy my drink. You buy your drink. Let's take an hour to get to know each other. And after that hour is up, if I'd like to see you again, I'll let you know. And if I don't, then I haven't wasted my entire day on somebody. And that may sound harsh, but I also think time is your most valuable. And when I say valuable, you can assign money to that if you want to. Time is your most valuable asset. So why would you give it to someone that you probably won't ever see again?
So that's a very good question. Now for you, because you are obviously very successful in your field, and so when you lay out things like that, I'm sure because about probably 95% of women aren't operating like that. So when you kind of lay it out like that straight, I can assume it could probably intimidate somebody who's not used to that, regardless of kind of where their status is. So is there, I guess I'm not sure how much you're looking for anybody, but is there a certain type of man or certain type of status that you kind of look for when you're dating? Because I imagine, depending on who you're talking to, a lot of men would kind of shy away from something like that. So how do you kind of weed out where that goes?
Well, it's also how you propose the question, right? So I don't just go in hot. I'm like, all right, so I'm paying for my shit on the first date. Like, that's not how I'm not going in at him like that. I'm like, hey, my rule of thumb when I go on a date is that I'd like to pay for my own drink on that date. I do not have the expectation that you're going to. And are you comfortable with that? So I always give them the option to tell me whether or not they're comfortable with paying for my coffee. I never just rule it out. And I'm like, I don't rule with an iron fist. I'm like, here are your options. Pick one. And tell me what works for you, because I don't want to assume anything. So proposing the question the right way, or propositioning somebody the right way, probably not the right word, probably not the right word, will help you uncover how that person thinks about money and how they think about how the first date should be handled. Now, with that said, let's just be very real, guys. I'm a country girl who grew up on a 20,000 acre tree nursery in the middle of God knows where, Oregon, and I now live on a little farm in Idaho. I need Rip Wheeler from Yellowstone. That's my guy. So, country boy, cowboy, blue collar, has to be able to build shit with his hands. Like when I'm looking for a guy, I'm not actually like, I need rip. Not really. I'm looking for someone who can match the way that I grew up and my traditions and values before I am looking for the way that the person looks or what they do for a living. So that's how I weed things out. And the way to do that is simply to converse and meet that person and learn some of their value propositions. And honestly, how they answer the question of who pays on the first date tells me a lot about them, because the majority of the men that I'm looking for will actually offer to pay for my drink on the first date. And in some cases tell me that they're not comfortable with me paying. Okay, cool. That's fine. I will, in most cases, if it's just coffee, I will let them pay, even though I really don't like to. I'm like, I really don't want to owe anybody anything. But it also tells me about their value cycle, how they were raised, and what they think about things. So as you're asking questions in relationships, especially as it pertains to money, it will teach you about their values and how they were raised, which tells me a lot about how someone's going to treat me in a relationship.
So why do you feel that someone will think that you owe them if they pay for your stuff? Because this is a good, like, a lot of people like shy away from that because guys are crazy like that. They're like, oh no, I paid for that, now you have to come see me again. Or they'll, even if it's joking, like part of it's true. And that's
it's entitlement. It's entitlement. It's not even just weirdos. I think it's that everything is one click away now. So if you do something nice for someone, you feel entitled to get something in return, because we are always constantly getting everything that we want. So if something isn't an automatic yes, or it's a soft maybe, people take that as well, I am entitled to this, so you are going to do it. Right. And that's where when I say I don't want anyone to feel, or I don't want to feel obligated to somebody, that's what I mean, is I don't want to give anybody a reason to think that they are entitled to anything that I have to provide, and vice versa. If I dated a billionaire, I'm entitled to $0 of his money. There is nothing to that. Even if I marry that man, believe me, that prenup's so damn tight, I'm probably going to see negative money. Like it's understanding how people operate and attracting the values you want that will lead you to the financial security you're looking for. And I think we've lost that. And so being a financial educator, talking about relationships, look for the values first and what you truly want out of your partner, and then have the conversation about money. And I can almost guarantee you, if your values align, chances are the way you think about money will too. There's probably going to be some discrepancies, but you'll be able to work through those. And right now, we don't date for values. We date for Instagram status.
Yeah. I've been there, done that. Didn't end well, but
well, yeah, probably not.
It looked great on the internet for a year.
Yeah.
It looked great for time being, but yeah, we don't do that anymore. We learned.
He said, we don't do it anymore. He did it. I want to be clear. He's the only one that did it.
He said we don't.
He said we's too many people in this scenario.
No, sir. No. I'm telling you.
So the dude, what'd you say, from the dude from Old Yeller, or what were we talking about?
Yellowstone.
Oh, Yellowstone. I haven't watched that. I was just thinking Old Yeller in the country and stuff.
No.
So is that a non-negotiable, or those are just preferences?
No, I mean, there's never, the only non-negotiables I have is please don't be married and be employed.
That's fair.
I'm cool with everything. Like if you have a career and you could be a janitor and love your job. Like if you enjoy your job and you're going to bring me peace, like we are straight. And please don't be married. Like it's just
come on, guys, do better. Don't be.
But literally, like I'm not reaching for the stars here. Now, if you want to give me a cowboy in Idaho, like I will not walk away.
Right.
Chances of me finding that, because I never leave my house, are slim to none. And if I do leave my house, I am on a plane leaving the state. So there's, I do that like 80, 90, 50, 100 times a year, but you don't meet cowboys in the airport.
Yeah, probably not.
Or typically not too many that are playing football right now. But maybe some young buck going to be a cowboy. What if he can't build anything with his hands?
No, it's game over.
He's got to learn.
If I can tile a bathroom, plumb it, and put in a shower by myself, homeboy, you better be able to fix the garbage disposal.
Oh, good Lord. Wait, you can do that?
What if he...
Yeah. Of course I can. I grew up in the country. We did everything ourselves.
Right, but what if he didn't know his dad growing up? So
that's
he had
okay.
nobody to teach him.
YouTube.
You two how to build a bathroom before you come talk to her.
Look,
there-
if the garbage disposal breaks and the first thing you do is come to me and say, can you fix it?
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
going
no,
to
that's
turn you
crazy.
over to your phone and say, you got a 10-minute tutorial, figure it
Well,
out.
I would never do that. I would just pay somebody to do it.
I would
See,
never.
and that's great. But when you live in the country, it doesn't
Yeah.
work like that.
Yeah.
Like, you don't just get to be like, okay, homeboy, so I need you to be here in like 3
Yeah.
hours. No, it's like you might wait 4 days. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not that country in Idaho. I'm in Boise, but
Okay.
I'm still not in like a big city, right? Things take time here. They're not, they don't move that. They don't move like LA or New York or Chicago or
Right.
Denver, or Dallas. It doesn't move like that here. Life
Yeah.
is slower. So
Okay.
I don't know. I just,
because in Tampa, if something is like broken,
you
like,
just call
get it
somebody.
you get it fixed the next day. So okay, that makes a lot more
I mean, I
sense.
probably could, but like, why would I pay somebody if I can get a part for $2 from Home Depot, rip the
Right.
bitch off, replace it, put it back on, and fix it? Like, why am I paying someone $80 to come do that when I can take 10 minutes of my day to do it?
I don't have to worry about it.
So when do you ask men? Do they know how to build things with their hands, or
At
can they
that
fix
coffee
things?
date?
When is that on the first date?
So here's the
No. So
scenario.
that is a learned skill that I figure that out over time. Also, their job tells me whether or not they can, honestly.
Yeah.
No, it's not a deal breaker. I can do just about anything. My dad and my brothers are like my roll dogs. So if I really need somebody, my brother Andrew will hop on his Harley and he will drive 6 hours to do whatever I need him to do, and then he'll go home. And he's younger than me. He's always got my back. My other brother, probably not so handy. Love him to pieces, but he's not as handy. And my dad too. Like, my dad can build anything. So like, I'm straight. It's not a requirement, but it's nice to know that if something breaks, here's what it comes down to, guys. I don't always have to be the dude in the relationship. I really want to be the girl. I want to be able to be in my feminine and be at peace and like bring my man peace.
You have to.
And if I can bring him peace by helping with the money, fantastic. If I can bring him peace by like, helping him around the house, great. Like, whatever that looks like, it's called a partnership for a reason. But I can't be responsible for everything, because that's not a partnership. At that point, that's just me being a sugar mama, and I'm not down.
Yeah, see that, because that's my thing, right? Because like you said, if something breaks and the first thing he does is come to you and ask you how to fix it, that's embarrassing. Or if you have to call your dad or your brother to come and do it, that's embarrassing. So because I'm not that handy, but that would never be the first thing that I do, is come to ask the woman that I'm living with. I'm like, I got too much pride for something like that. I'm gonna embarrass myself trying to put this thing back together first.
I love it.
I'll be resourceful. Yeah,
I'm gonna get on Google,
There you
YouTube,
go.
whatever it is.
I have a lot of friends who are good at it. So first thing is,
There you
I'll
go.
call them, hey, what does this do?
Well, and that's kind of what we do here. Like, if somebody needs help living in Idaho, you call your neighbor when you need help, because everybody here has a different skill set. So yes. Now in dating, the reason I tell you guys all of this, and like, I'm an open book about it, I want a 100-acre ranch, and I want to be able to work that ranch, and I will be living on that ranch. And my guy's got to be able to repair a fence if the cows knock it over. Like, I need him to be able to man up and do that. I'll take care of the chicken coop. I got that bitch on lock, but he's got to take care of the pastures. And that's why I say, like, it's got to work. Now, that assumes I stop traveling.
And is masculine.
Facts. And that allows me to be in my feminine, because what I do for a living requires me to be in my masculine all the time.
Right.
Now, I'm still big sis to all my players. Like, I'm still a feminine presence, and that will never change, but I'm still the authority figure.
Yeah.
Which puts me in a position to have to maintain masculinity in my job, which I have no problem with. I like doing that. I love being able to help people. And what's crazy is my job allows me to be feminine and masculine simultaneously, because I get to help people while giving them actual, real, tangible knowledge. But when I come home, I don't want to be Coach Hill anymore. I just want to be Hill. I want to sit and play video games on my couch and like work in my yard and lift in my gym and have someone to do that with. I'm so simple, it's silly. And that's why I never meet anybody, because I never leave.
Yeah. Now,
It'll happen when it's supposed to happen. That's what I always say.
I think so too.
I'm curious, as when you're talking to men. Well, I don't know if you talk to people about dating, but would you recommend a man to date a woman who does make more than him?
I think it depends on the relationship, honestly. I don't think that the money matters if both parties have zero fucks to give about the money. And what I mean by that is, if you value the person's character and what they
Mhm.
bring to the table, the money shouldn't matter. Now, this day and age, it's a huge component of values, unfortunately. So if I have a guy that is going to date a woman who makes significantly more than him, he has to be able to put his ego aside and say, she can be the breadwinner. I'm still going to do all the things that make me masculine, but I'm going to have to be okay with my woman bringing home the bread. And I'm going to have to be okay with putting my masculine aside when it comes to finances and allowing her to run it. And that typically isn't this is why so many women who are successful are single.
Mhm.
We don't care that you're not bringing home as much as we are. Like, we really don't care because we've made the money. What we're looking for is that joint partnership. And the hard part is the man is designed biologically to serve and take care of the woman. And that innately in this day and age means finances. So it's being able to separate ego from biology and everything else and say, I can set that aside to be with her. A lot of times ego wins, which is
Right.
why when a guy comes to me and says, oh, I'm going to, this woman, she makes so much more than me. She's so successful. She's so amazing. And then 6 months into the relationship, he starts to panic.
Right.
Why does he start to panic? Because she makes more than him and now he feels inferior, even though she doesn't see it that way because he's doing all of these other things that keep her peace intact.
Mhm.
He's having an internal struggle. My last relationship was one of those.
Mm.
And we talked about it and he's like, it's just not something I can overcome. And I was like, cool, well, I can't stop doing what I do for a living. So like, impasse, cool. Where it's hard to separate what we're biologically programmed to do from the way the world works now, because this is new. This is 30 years old. This is not hundreds of years of evolution old, or thousands of years if we date things back. So yeah, I would say it depends on the man and it depends on the woman and it depends on how aware he is of his ego and if he can actually truly set it aside.
So let's talk about it on the flip side then, right? Because what the challenge what the challenge is a lot of times is that, well, from what I've heard, is that for when men are dating women who make more than them, it's not a problem until it is. So when it comes to maybe arguments or something along the line, what happens is that she'll demean or degrade him. And that's the first thing that she'll attack when she gets upset.
For sure.
So that makes that dating part of it a little bit tough, because that's kind of in the back of every man's head, is that what happens when I piss her off?
Is she going to use it against me?
Is she going to call me broke?
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
And this is where
toilet broke boy.
This is where women need to do better, because if we are going to say like boss babe and run with that culture, which I'm not in full support of the boss babe culture, believe it or not. I was forced into hyper independence. This was not by choice. Now, do I love what I do and do I love my business? Absolutely. Would I change it? Absolutely not. Would I have liked to have done it with somebody? Bet. But so the boss babe hustle culture, you don't need a man bullshit, I do not agree with at all. Sorry, ladies, I'm going to piss some people off. I don't agree with that, because I just like, it takes more than one person and it takes more than a feminine energy to accomplish things. It takes both sides. And when women use what tools they have to manipulate men, and sometimes it's our bodies, sometimes we're a little more clever and we can do things that maybe men don't even catch on to until it's too late. And sometimes we're just blatantly rude and we call you out and say you're broke. We got to check that at the door as well, because in order to have a true partnership with somebody, knowing that he isn't the breadwinner, you don't get to use that in an argument to make him feel even worse, because now you're just plaguing the problem. So this again is lack of education and understanding how psychology works, because people don't learn how to have a constructive conflict. We've learned how to yell at each other, storm out of a room, and swipe left. We have not learned how to talk things out. And I'm a psychology minor. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know all the shit.
I could tell. Yeah, you talk about.
But I work in relationships and money and have for 15 years. So I'm like, we're both at fault. Both sides of the equation are at fault. And it's going to take a special blend of someone who's okay with, being a stay-at-home dad. Like, that's a real thing. And and I love stay-at-home dads, because they do something that most men can't do. I would say they're mentally tougher because of what they're doing. But then we have women who are breadwinners who have to be able to shut it off. They have to be able to come home and be feminine and let the man be a man. And our culture has just said, like, You either have to be all of one thing or all of another, and you can't move between the two, which is not fair. And like men can't have emotions. That's crap. Women want to know how you feel. Like we actually need to know because we are emotional creatures. If you don't tell us anything, we're immediately going to go off the deep end, right?
Yeah,
so it's
naturally nurturers. So
correct. So it's kind of when asked the question, just like if a woman makes more money, the answer isn't an easy one, but it takes the right pairing. If you can find the right people and they're dating each other and their values align and he can put away the ego and she's not going to manipulate or attack him in any way, it can work. But I've seen most of them fail, sadly. Like I've saying that sucks because I am that chick and that sucks.
I was gonna say.
And the one time that we did try to succeed in that, he really was the one who's like, I just can't do it. I'm sorry. And I wasn't mad at him for it. I understood why, but he came from a traditional family and he felt less than, and he's like, it's just not going to work. And I was like, that's completely fine. And that is what, like, you have to try it to figure out if it's going to work, but it takes a special partnership.
So your preference with, the big burly man who fixes everything is typically going to come from a traditional family. So do you think maybe you need to look for somebody who comes from an untraditional family?
Honestly, I don't think that whether or not they were raised with two parents, one parent, whether they were a foster kid or they were adopted, I don't really think that so much matters. What I look for in a person is how do they value the relationships they have? And when I say traditional, I came from a family that was respectful. My father was incredibly respectful of my mom. He took care of my mom. My mom ran shit, but my dad took care of my mom. And watching their dynamic, he would let her do her thing until she did something. He's like, nah, I'm gonna rein you in just a little bit. And the respect level there, watching that growing up, is what I look for within all of the relationships I have. So someone doesn't have to grow up in a traditional household to see a man and woman respect one another. That could come from a lot of different places. So for me, when I see someone who's able to articulate and respect me as a person, not push my boundaries, and when I say not push my boundaries, they're not going to be married, for example.
Be married and let you have your work schedule.
and not fight. That's a big thing. Don't fight me on my work schedule. Yes, I work with pro athletes.
Yeah,
I'm in and out of a building in a day.
Intimidating, right?
Come with me. Come with me.
Exactly.
Come with me. Like you can be my plus one. Come with me every time. I have zero things to hide. I've been doing this for 10 years. If I was going to do something, I'd have done it in my 20s. I'm too old for that shit. These guys are 20 years old. Let's keep it moving. And they're literally like my children. I'm 18 years older than most of these men. Like, they're perspective.
21.
Yeah.
Some of them are 19. Literally. I'm like, no. Again,
this next generation are freaks, man.
Not my type. Like, you guys have now learned my type. Just Google Rip from Yellowstone. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
He's gonna let me be crazy. But it just.
So I feel like you're like talking about the values, and someone has to respect you, respect your time. But just because somebody is respectful of you and others, that doesn't mean that their emotional intelligence.
Oh, agreed. There's other layers.
Is there. So maybe that's the other layer that needs to be pulled back, because a lot of the times the traditional man has zero emotional intelligence.
Agreed. So asking questions like, how do you handle conflict within a relationship? Asking someone that question can tell me a lot about that person's EQ almost instantaneously.
So word for EQ. Wow.
Yeah.
So if I I do this with a lot of my players too. Like this is I'm a coach, you guys. My job's to ask.
Yeah, you got to know everything. Yeah.
But if I ask a guy, how do you handle financial conflict inside your relationship? The way that he responds to that question is going to tell me a lot about his EQ. It's also going to tell me a lot about his financial IQ, and it's going to tell me a lot about what he thinks about money, not how he feels about it, but what he frames it as in his mind. So asking the question, like flipping that from finance to a relationship, if I just ask someone, how do you handle conflict within a relationship? And they tell me, well, I just walk away because I need time. I'm like, oh, you're an avoidant, hardcore avoidant. That's not going to work. Or I like to talk things out. I like to take my space. Like, I need to hear the answer, and I need to hear how they answer it, because that's going to tell me a lot about that person's EQ. And then if I need to go even deeper because I realize that this person can answer the question properly, then I go into, why did your last relationship end? And is there anything you would have done differently within that relationship to improve it? And the reason I say you,
Yeah.
why would I say you though?
Because it's easy to say what the other person did wrong.
It takes two to tango. Yeah,
Facts. But if they respond with, well, she did this and she did that, and
they're blamed.
What am I doing? I'm going, because at that point, if the person comes to me and says, the relationship didn't work because we weren't compatible in XYZ areas, but I could have improved in these areas. They've thought through that relationship, they've processed it, and they've moved on. If they come to me and complain about the girl, A, they're not over her, period. Because you don't complain about somebody that you're not thinking about. You just don't.
Yeah, that's true.
And then B, you don't have the capacity, and people don't have capacity in a lot of cases, to process your emotions, which tells me you've got some trauma in your past you need to work through. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to be your sounding board to do that. But once you see a therapist, give me a call. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but I've dated the dismissive avoidant. I've dated the fearful avoidance. I've done all of those things personally. So I'm able to see it in real time with the people I work with and help them ask the right questions of their partner to get the answer. Now, if they're married, we got to figure it out. But if they're just seeing a girl for the first time and she's all up in their financial business, it's a lot of red flags for me.
Interesting. So out of all those things, which one of those are you?
Which one? What? Oh, I'm a secure attachment at this point in my life.
Yeah. The older you get.
Oh no, someone can push me into anxious preoccupied pretty quickly. If they hit all my trigger buttons, they can make me a very anxious attached partner, which is where I settle into insecurities that maybe aren't there. It takes a lot to get me there, and I can pull myself out of it fairly quickly, but it takes a lot of self-reflection and a lot of working through what's in my own head, because we all have demons. If you're fighting an internal battle that nobody can see every day, it's whether or not you can conquer that and share it with someone else so they understand your struggle and can work with you on it versus fight you on it. And
we call it the roommate. Roommate.
Yep. Oh, we all got one or two of those, sometimes three.
In my last relationship, it was funny that you wanted to bring up the how you handle conflict. That was what I realized that I was really, really bad at. Just avoiding it. I was like, you're fighting with yourself at this point. I'm not.
You shut down.
Yeah, I just I don't like to fight, whatever. But after the relationship, I always do self-reflection on it. Why did it mess up? What happened? I analyzed the entire thing from how we met to how we ended it.
Yeah.
And ended on good terms. So that's always good. But
and it's okay that someone's not the right fit. That's the whole point of dating. People forget that.
Realize, it's hard, but you can realize this might not be the person that you're going to grow old with. But doing that, it's oh well. When we had these conflicts or problems, it was only her problem. I didn't partake in the problem, and then I realized oh well,
you were the problem at that point because you made yourself the problem.
Because I'm not engaging in it. I'm just trying to avoid it, which didn't help at all. So funny that
I saw a podcast once. I thought it was fascinating. The guy said he learned a really valuable lesson because he was always, the woman he was dating was always in his ear about, hey, these are the things that I need and these are the things that I want from you. And here are my boundaries. And he kept pushing back on her. And one day she came to him and she said, I have created the problem and realized that the only problem you have is me, that I am your problem. And the best solution I have is to remove myself from the equation because you can't meet my needs. That removes the problem. Therefore, you're going to be fine. And when he said that, I was like, bro, you just got schooled. You just lost a really good woman who understands herself and was openly communicating. And
but
you
that's
couldn't.
A big problem that guys have.
Yes.
That emotional intelligence, that EQ, they just don't really know. We don't know what we don't know at that point in time in that relationship.
Correct.
And unfortunately, when we're in a relationship, we're not at a mental state to want to know. We don't want to grow in that sense because we feel like we already got to figure it out because we're with the person that we want to be with. So it's only going to
Communication
happen.
is the most difficult thing that we deal with inside relationships, and it applies to everything within that relationship. And
Mhm.
conflict is going to always arise. So the people that are
Right.
fearful of conflict and are not willing to work through it are going to be the ones that they'll have relationships. They will end, and they won't last more
Mhm.
than 6 months to 2 years, depending on, the person's avoidant type. Um, but that, I mean, unfortunately, I hate saying this because it's so true and it applies to
Mhm.
everything we learn in school. We're not
Mhm.
taught any freaking communication skills.
Yeah,
No, nothing.
that's very true.
We're
We're
not
really
taught
not
how to
taught.
have dialogues that are hard, and we're not
Yeah,
Yeah.
taught how to disagree with someone cordially.
yeah, yeah,
I don't
That's a
have to agree with
terrible
you
thing.
about
Yeah.
anything, but it doesn't mean I get to
yeah.
be disrespectful because you
Right.
have a different opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. That.
And we need to learn that in relationships. Like, I need to be able to tell you I don't like your opinion, but I respect it, and like, you can have it and I'm gonna have mine, and we're just
Mhm.
gonna leave it at that, and we're not gonna fight about it anymore. But
Right.
everybody needs to have their piece of the pie. And if people can't agree to disagree on things, we see this, and we're seeing it in our country too. The whole country is like polar opposites
Hmm.
split.
Yeah. It's gotten worse with this newer generation because we don't bully anymore. So we got to bring
Oh
that
no,
back.
we do bully. They're just keyboard warriors. They are
Yeah.
Yeah.
not,
That's
they
it.
won't do it. Like my generation, you had to walk up and punch dude in the face. This
Yeah.
generation is behind a keyboard and 16 IP addresses and you can't find
Hmm.
them. And
Like
yeah,
what?
no, there's bullying. It's just
Hmm.
done in a different way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I don't agree with any of it. Like I don't like
Hmm.
bullies, but at the same time, having somebody who pushes you a little bit, not to
You
say
need that.
bullies are
Everybody
good,
needs that. Yeah.
you need to
Yeah.
be able to see conflict when you're a child, so you learn how to adapt emotionally to said conflict.
Mhm.
Now, that is not somebody punching you or making you feel like a piece of
Yeah.
shit or any of that. But if you don't see conversations that result in disagreements, how do you, as an adult, process the emotions behind those conflicts to be able to come to a resolution, even if you don't have the same side?
That yeah, that
Yeah.
made me think of something because like why I guess I was so unconfrontational. Like I hate conflict. And I talked to my dad about this, which I didn't meet him
Yeah.
till I was 20, so I met him about 11 years ago, and I like
Mhm.
went through that whole childhood conversation, like why is this? And he's like, I don't like conflict either. But when I was growing up, I lived with my mom, and I would see her be in conflicts with the guy she was with before, like my stepdad now. So I think that, and then I even remember
Yeah.
when I was even like real young. I remember I got into a fight, and this kid fought me. I didn't even hit him back the whole time. He's just trying to fight me and punch me and push me onto the ground and is trying to wrestle me on the ground. And he just finally stops, and I just get up and just like, all right, just walk away. So I guess I've always been like super super avoidant of those things, and
Yeah.
just as of recently been like extra aware that that's
Yeah.
how I operate.
Well, and that just takes time and it takes
Mm-hmm.
reflection. And it also takes someone helping you uncover where those childhood traumas come from. We all have something in our childhood that
Mm-hmm.
stuck with us that we maybe don't think about. And it does impact our interpersonal relationships and our ability to connect with other people or hold value with other people. And that's why relationships are hard. I'm very blunt in my
Mm-hmm.
relationships, which I know you were asking me, like, are you intimidating? Yeah, I scare the shit out of most people.
Yeah, I can see
Um,
that. I can see that absolutely.
yeah, and
I
I'm
was
all
like a
in on
little scared, but I'm like,
5'3" on a good day, but I will make myself look 6 foot. Okay. I'm very tiny, like a very tiny little person, big ass personality.
Hmm.
Uh, but the bluntness is real. People don't are not accustomed to just hearing someone say what they think,
mm-hmm.
because we don't exercise our First Amendment rights as much as we used to. Everything
Hmm.
has to be PC and everything has to be said a specific way or thought out a specific way. And I just have zero fucks to give when it comes to that. So
Mm-hmm.
I I tell you exactly how I feel. And like I said, there's going to be boss babe girls on here that are going to hate me, but there's going to be women
Mm-hmm.
that are like, yes, I totally stand behind that, right? Let's cordially agree to disagree, because we're
Yeah.
going to have two
Right.
sides of the fence there. Now, my side of the fence is my side. You don't have to like it. Doesn't mean you have to hate me
Hmm.
for it. You just don't have to join my side of the fence.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
that's the part we're lacking in society right now, is the
But if you're a
ability to
guy,
have
you got to
open
build that
conversations.
fence.
Yeah.
Huh?
I think.
I said,
Yeah,
if you're
well,
the
I
guy,
built
you
my
got to
own this
build
time
that.
because, I'm building my own at the moment, but I'd love to
Yeah.
have somebody come build it for me.
Yeah, I think that as a big thing with this, especially in relationships when it comes to this, for guys on our end, we're kind of walking on eggshells a lot when we're
Yeah.
trying to communicate. Because obviously, like you said, we weren't really taught how to do it. So we're still
No.
trying to figure it out. But also we've been taught that if we say the wrong thing, and then the young lady that we're with doesn't like that, then
Yeah.
now it's a problem for the next week. And
Oh,
so it
Jesus.
makes it a little bit tougher to really say, or like you said, respectfully and cordially disagree, because now she thinks I hate her and that she's stupid or something, and that's just not what the case is. So it makes life just a little bit tough.
Ladies, we need to do better. Guys are allowed to have opinions. We have to do better and have emotions.
Yeah, guys
I
are
agree with
limited
you.
to a lot of things, though.
Yeah,
Uh,
we're working on it too. But yeah, everybody
we all do. Collectively, there's some work that needs to be done. But I agree.
Got to do the work.
We're
Emotional
very
intelligence.
sensitive. Women are very sensitive. So how you phrase things can make us feel like we've done something wrong. Or, when you're like, when you're 5 and you get in trouble with a teacher and they're like, you are going to go sit in the chair in the corner. When our partner attacks us on either side of the fence, or we feel attacked, even though they're just trying to express themselves, you feel like that 5-year-old who's in trouble again. And like your world is crumbling because when you're 5, you can't manage those emotions. It
Right.
takes you back to that. And so I agree with you. I think you're right that women will hold on to it for a week or two because they take it so personally. Even though it's not a personal anything. You're just like, hey, this is how I feel about this. And they're like, oh my God, that's everything I've done for the last month it's over. We have to get better at expressing, women have to get better at expressing when our feelings are hurt and why, so that you can say, okay, that wasn't my intent, or that wasn't what I meant to make you feel. Here's what I was trying to express. That clarification can clear up a lot of things. So in my past relationship with the guy that I was dating, that was he was a welder on the oil rigs or oil pipeline. When he would say something, I would say, did you mean for it to come off as I was doing this wrong? Or did you have a different intent behind that? Because I'm feeling like I did something wrong. And he would be immediately like, oh, no. Wait, hold on. Sorry. I didn't say that right. And he would clarify. And then he started to learn to ask those things of me when I would be very blunt and spit something out at him. Because I just pop off at the mouth. And he's like, did you mean for it to sound like this, ... whatever this was? And I was like, oh, no, I didn't. That was not my intent. What I was trying to say is this. And so we learned each other's communication styles, albeit we were never perfect. But if I ever needed clarification or I could tell something was off, I would go to the root of it and be like, why are we off right now? Did I say something? And then he would tell me what bothered him. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, no. Let me clarify. What I meant to say was this. And we can't take ownership as a society. Nobody can be wrong. And I was like, I'm wrong all the time, 24/7.
It's important to admit when you're wrong. I think I just did that the other day, but it's not
The other day.
For like the first time in 5 years.
Just clap it up.
It happens though. Self-awareness is key, and emotional intelligence. So we forgot to do the deal of the day. We usually do a deal of the day. And I guess I always remember when we're coming towards the end.
Oh yeah.
So we usually do a deal of the day, and it's like it'll be like a quote or a Bible verse that's related to the topic. But then I forget until the very end.
Okay.
What is it?
I forgot to go and get one.
Oh, we forgot to go and get ones. But to wrap things up here, you got any other questions?
Yeah. So first, thank you so much for joining us here today. This has been a lot of fun. I want to ask something that you said a little bit earlier about just taking the time to learn something new when we're talking about money, because financial literacy is a huge thing. It's a huge problem right now. So that's kind of what I want to focus on here. But I want to ask you, if somebody was trying to get into learning something about money, and they said, I have 5 minutes on this day, what's the first thing you would tell them to go and start?
I'd want them to start a personal finance podcast around budgeting and money management.
Okay.
And there's several out there. Find one that works for you. Don't just settle on the first one you find, because everybody budgets a little differently. And just start learning about how people choose to manage their money, whether it's a traditional budget, the envelope system, the bucket system, notes on their phone. There's a million different ways to do it. Find something that handles money management and can give you 5 minutes of a tip every day.
Okay, beautiful. And then money and relationships. What's one tip that you would give somebody for how to handle money and then money conversations within their relationship?
Yeah. So, first and foremost, individually, if you don't have your money on lock, you're going to have a much harder time being in a relationship trying to handle money. So, it's
There it is.
important that
Yeah.
Yeah.
individually you have to know your money, you have to know your numbers, and you have to learn how money works and then make your lifestyle and budget work for you so that when you come to that relationship, you're coming in whole and not broken so that you can have tough conversations. In terms of inside of a relationship, my best advice is when you're ready to talk about money, don't blindside your partner. Ask them to set aside time, 3 to 5 days in the future, where you can both come to the table with whatever questions you have about money and start the discussion. Don't assume you're going to get through everything in that first meeting. It's not going to happen. But don't blindside them either, because then they're going to feel attacked, and money's very personal. So set up a time, ask politely if you can sit down and talk about money, that you have some questions, and then try to maintain that monthly meeting. Find a time every month that works for both of you. Come together for 30 minutes to an hour, go through the numbers, talk about money, bring up problems, talk through wins and successes. That will change how you operate your money game with your partner.
Love that. That was beautiful.
All right. And the last question I got, what's more important, money or freedom?
Freedom. Freedom.
Keep it simple.
Money is the tool to get you to freedom.
There it is.
Yeah,
Money's not the goal.
money is not the goal.
Money is not the goal.
So
Money
make
is the
sure
tool.
you guys know that the people that are listening that are workhorses, learn to
Are you
take
looking
your-
at me right now?
learn to take your rest days as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Enjoy your life. You only got one of them. So, all right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.